Coming in at number 10 is Spider-Man with the powers of the Beyonder. For this point, we are talking about regular old Peter Parker from Spider-Man and Secret Wars number 4, when he temporarily gains the powers of the Beyonder. Before Dr. Doom was granted the Beyonder's powers in Secret Wars, the Beyonder power actually went to 2 others. Once the power left the Beyonder himself, it actually went straight to Wolverine, who absolutely could not handle the power, so he almost immediately bestowed it onto Spider-Man. With this power, Spider-Man turns Doc Ock into plants, obliterates a big group of villains, easily rips apart Ultron, literally stomps on the Molecule Man, and defeats Galactus with his fists. He brings the city from the 32nd century into the modern day, creating New Parker City. He saves Uncle Ben on like 3 separate occasions, but then we learn that this all happened in like 1/1000th of a second before Dr. Doom took the power back for himself, which was the way it was supposed to be. Number 9, Silver Surfer becoming worthy. If you want to see a whole whack of upgraded characters, then I send you to the Thanos Wins arc from writers Donny Cates and Jeff Shaw from Thanos Volume 2. Thanos goes to the end of the universe where he has become King Thanos, and in issue 16, a vengeful Silver Surfer shows up to take both of these versions of Thanos on after spending millions of years becoming the last being worthy of Thor's hammer, taking on a darker look imbued with black matter, calling himself the Fallen One, and gaining control over the Annihilation Wave. He shows up with the Annihilation Wave, hits both versions of the Mad Titan with massive blows, he one-shots a cosmic-powered Ghost Rider, he reverts the Hulk back into Bruce Banner, but somehow still gets defeated by King Thanos, who wields the Twilight Sword of Surtur, and then King Thanos and regular Thanos proceed to viciously bring the Surfer to his end. Now I'm telling you, this story is absolutely bonkers, and to prove that, we will now talk about the number 8 spot, Frank Castle with the power of the Ghost Rider and the power cosmic. Coming from the same Thanos comic just a few issues earlier in number 13, this version of Frank Castle comes from the future and he is quite literally insane. He shows up in the most badass way ever, causing a rain of blood before blasting through Thanos' army of Chitauri with hellfire and riding this insane looking space motorcycle. It's quite beautiful, honestly. He then traps Thanos in a chain made of the bones of Sidorak, and using a fraction of the Time Stone, he takes Thanos all the way to the future to meet that King Thanos that we just talked about. This is Frank Castle, who was hit with debris and died during the final stand against Thanos on Earth in an alternate universe. Once Frank made it to Hell, he made a deal with Mephisto to return to Earth for vengeance on the Mad Titan, but when this new Ghost Rider showed back up on Earth, everything was already lost. He was completely alone, and even Mephisto stopped responding eventually. This drove Frank Castle insane. Galactus eventually did show up, and Frank gave Galactus the Earth in exchange for being his herald and gaining the power cosmic as well as the Ghost Rider. These two spent hundreds of years together until the day they finally faced Thanos, who defeated Galactus with one fell head-chopping swoop. Frank then became King Thanos' number 1 guy. He was such a great character that he even got his own solo series, which you just need to check out. Number 7, Iron Man and Doctor Strange. So, it turns out that Tony Stark is actually a good fit to become the Sorcerer Supreme, as it has happened not just once, but on 2 separate occasions in Marvel Comics. The first time would be in What If issue number 113 from 1998, where Tony and Stephen Strange meet at a party, and after leaving together, Tony is driving when they get into a car crash that ruins the Doctor's hands. This leads Tony on a journey fueled by guilt to try and repair Strange's hands, leading him to the Ancient One and becoming the master of the mystic arts, but also learning how to infuse his tech and armor with magic to create a much more capable hero that is portrayed to Dormammu by Stephen Strange, who becomes almost like Baron Mordo. Now the second time would be an all-new X-Men Annual number 1 from 2014, which showed us Iron Man from Earth TRN 591, who brought together the Avengers to permanently end the threat of Thanos, which resulted in the alien races of the universe rewarding Earth with technology, making it a utopia, and Tony would start to lean more into his mystical side, becoming the Sorcerer Supreme and being able to solve conflicts without any kind of real fighting, and living youthfully comfortable at 126 years old, which is insane. And then the thumbnail for this list is also an Iron Sorcerer Supreme, but that is actually Stephen Strange with an Iron Man armor from Savage Avengers number 9 called the Iron Mage, and Savage Avengers Volume 1 is a must-read, so you can check that one out for yourself. I'm moving on. Number 6. Hal Jordan and the Spectre. This point also gets to be a bit of a 2-in-1, but this time we aren't looking at alternate universes. After the incredibly infamous destruction of Hal Jordan's home, Coast City, at the hands of Cyborg, Superman, and Mongol, Hal goes a little bit bonkers with his grief, leading to the Emerald Twilight story. Hal tries to create a hard-light construct of the entirety of Coast City and the people that he knew who perished living in it, using all the charge in his ring that he had to do so. The Guardians of the Universe scolded Hal for irresponsibly using his power for his own personal reasons and demanded he report for discipline. But, the Guardians were the ones who were responsible for Hal not being in Coast City to save it in the first place. So, Hal, all by his lonesome and absolutely insane, tore through 8 of the strongest lanterns, taking their rings. He obliterated Kilowog, snapped the neck of Sinestro, and then he took down all the Guardians, drained the central power battery, and destroyed the Green Lantern Corps, becoming, or being possessed by, Parallax. He became a universal threat, attempting to restart the universe, but was eventually defeated by the heroes and sacrificed himself. But following that, he eventually became the new host for the Spectre, becoming God's vengeance and one of the most powerful entities in DC Comics for a time. Number 5. The Herald of Thunder. In the 2020 volume of Thor, written by Donny Cates, Nick Klein, and Matt Wilson, the god of strength and thunder has finally become the new All-Father of Asgard. Yay! That on its own comes with a whole host of upgrades to his levels of power, but he does lose his arm and his eyes, so potential negatives there. Not too long after his ascension to the throne, Galactus comes in hot to Asgard, but not with the intention of devouring it like you might expect. Instead, the World Devourer is running from the universe-devouring Black Winter. This is the entity that destroyed the previous iteration of the universe and turned Galactus into its herald. So it's kind of a big deal. Galactus is freaked, and he has learned that Thor will be the cause of his own passing, so in order to keep the All-Father close, Thanos turns Thor into the Herald of Thunder, which returns his arm and his eye, grants him with the power cosmic a huge power boost, and gives him one of the most dope looks for Thor I have ever seen. Definitely my favorite. With this power, Thor was able to completely drain Galactus of his power he had gained eating 5 different planets, and drain the power cosmic from the World Devourer. Then he turned Galactus' body into a massive explosion that leveled the Black Winter to nothingness. Number 4. Wally West and the Mobius Chair. Wally West, as I have said a few times, is probably the most powerful person to be the Flash. He has a whole hell of a lot of feats to prove that, but he reached a whole new level when he first sat on the Mobius Chair. This artifact basically makes whoever is sitting in it completely omnipotent, basically meaning they know everything ever. But Wally isn't the first person to sit in the chair. Obviously there is Mobius, who the chair is named after, but during the Darkseid War in the New 52 Justice League, Batman sat in the chair as well, and it was hella cool. But this is more than that. When Wally sits in the chair, it has been imbued with the energy of Dr. Manhattan. After Wally's involvement in the accidental passing of the heroes at Sanctuary, he was recruited to seek redemption. He removed all the invading dark matter from the multiverse, and in an act to save his kids, he sat in the infused Mobius chair. So now, Wally West, possibly the fastest being to ever exist, gained almost limitless knowledge and gained the powers of Dr. Manhattan, who can create life and manipulate molecules. He used the power to help defeat the Batman Who Laughs in the Death Metal event. In at number 3 is King Thor and the Phoenix Force. Yes, we are jumping back to Thor, but this isn't Earth 616 Thor. This Thor comes from the alternate reality of Earth 14412. His past is pretty similar to the 616 version of Thor that we know, even becoming All-Father Thor after the War of the Realms event. But after that event, at some point in time, Thor leaves Asgard and joins Omnipotent City's Interdeity Justice Department, which means he becomes a cosmic god cop. That's so cool. Basically, he arrested gods who would go and fight other gods. He would also become a planet at one point, then he had an affair with a frost giant and had a baby half-giant son, who then had 3 daughters, making Thor a grandpappy. He then went back to being All-Father, which is when Loki schemed to cause the complete annihilation of life on Earth Earth, turning Thor into a big old grump. He would eventually help defeat Gore the God Butcher, restore life to Earth, and then all the way at the end of time, he encountered Old Man Logan, who had the Phoenix Force, and in a battle with a ghost-riding, iron-fisted, star-branded Sorcerer Supreme Dr. Doom, Thor gained the Phoenix Force and fought Doom for 99 years before emerging victorious and going into the Forever Sleep. I hope that sounded as absurdly wild as it is, because it's just insane. Number 2. Venom and the King in Black. The King in Black is the cosmic divine ruler of the symbiotes, basically the god of symbiotes. The King in Black is the nexus of the symbiote hive mind. This means that King in Black can telepathically communicate with, dominate, and control all symbiotes in existence. Now previously, and for millions and millions of years, basically forever, the King in Black was an eldritch god of darkness called Null, and he was the one to first create the symbiotes out of the primordial void that existed before the universe was born. Well, he still got his butt kicked by a human. When Null finally attacked Earth, Eddie, Venom, and Eddie's son Dylan were crucial in the fight. The Venom symbiote broke free from Null's control and rebonded to Eddie and a new symbiote codex, incarnating as a gigantic version of Venom. On top of that, Eddie was resurrected by the god of light, Null's opposite, which transformed him into a cosmically powered version of Venom. Then, Eddie fused Mjolnir and the Silver Surfer's surfboard into a massive, insane battle axe and used it to easily overpower Null and fly him into the core of the sun. He then became the new King in Black. And finally, in at number 1, it's Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman seems to receive some of the most insane power boosts in DC Comics from time to time. Or at least in their Prime continuity, she has been boosted to insane levels 3 separate times. Now for the purposes of time, I'm gonna tell you only about one of them, which marked Wonder Woman. When she was a child, Diana was marked by the goddess Hecate, the goddess of magic and witchcraft. This gave her a fraction of the goddess's powers, which lay dormant until the Witching War arc of Justice League Dark Volume 2, when it was activated by the Upside Down Man. Now with this power, Diana revived everyone who got killed by the arrival and actions of the Upside Down Man, meaning she brought back Constantine, Bobo, and Swamp Thing, who shouldn't be able to be revived, just so that we're on the same level here. Diana could easily rip literal holes in reality, open portals, move entire mountains with a thought, and the whole of reality shook when she took a step. Zatanna said that Wonder Woman's magical power was like anything she had ever seen or felt before. Now eventually this power grew even further, to the point that Diana was able to defeat the Upside Down Man, who is equal and opposite to Hecate in terms of power, and then she set everything back to the way it was supposed to be. And that's all I gotta say about that.
Number 10. Red Goblin. Well, we've recently got a glimpse at a new Red Goblin who also seems to be more heroic in nature, Normie, the grandson of Norman Osborn. There was also a time when the Carnage symbiote was attached to another, much more sinister presence, Norman Osborn himself. Norman Osborn is typically known for his goblin persona, one of, if not the, arch nemesis to Spider-Man, depending on, I guess, your own opinion. I feel like some people might say Doc Ock is, I personally would say Norman is, but you know, to each their own. However, there was a time when Norman was no longer the Goblin, having been forcefully cured against his will. In order to reclaim his Goblin abilities and persona, he teamed up with Carnage, as Carnage could help the serum work on Norman once more. Bonding together, they became Red Goblin, a terrifying enemy who succeeded in killing Flash Thompson, and almost also defeated Spider-Man himself. In fact, they would have defeated him if it weren't for Peter's own wit, as he convinced Norman to ditch the Carnage symbiote or risk having to share his victory over Spider-Man. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, and if you love when villains get super powerful upgrades, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 9. Captain Cold. The leader of the rogues in the DC Prime Earth universe, or at least one of the leaders, Leonard Snart became frustrated that his and his team's tech were not enough to defeat the Flash. As a result, he made a plan to use their weapons in order to imbue them all with powers. They did this by infusing their DNA with their own powers, blending their weapons with themselves in order to give themselves powers, although really this was kind of Captain Cold's decision himself. Everybody else didn't really have as much of a say. While this worked out well for Captain Cold, who gained cryokinesis powers, it did not work as well for some of the other members, who did gain powers, but ones that cost them in terms of their individual lives, being less easily controlled and manipulated as Leonard's, at least in some cases. Number 8. Lady Deathstrike. I mean, if you know the story of Lady Deathstrike, then I'm sure her upgrades won't be super unbelievable, but also, if you know the story of Lady Deathstrike, then her villain upgrades may actually still be pretty unbelievable, because I feel like her story itself is unbelievable. Her origin story is just such a sad one that once you know about how she became a villain, you're probably going to be somewhat shocked and also feel for her, despite all the horrible and unforgivable things she has done as a villain. I know I personally have felt for her, and I think her story is super tragic, so let's get into that. Yuriko Oyama is the daughter of Kenji Oyama, a brilliant scientist but cruel father who actually invented the adamantium bonding process, and was known as the criminal overlord Lord Darkwind. He created the adamantium bonding process and then it was stolen from him. Despite the fact that Yuriko was frequently mistreated by her father, and even given a permanent face scar by him, which he gave to all his children, how nice, as a reflection of his own facial scarring that he suffered as a result of a World War II battle, Yuriko would eventually grow to emulate him anyways. Initially, she despised her father and even ended up killing him while protecting the hero Daredevil, which you'd think means that she would grow up to, become a hero and do some good stuff. However, even once free of her father physically, she could not escape his hold on her mentally. Her lover, one of his assassins, who was blindly devoted to him, ended up taking his own life following Lord Darkwind's death. This caused a shift in Yuriko, who then set out to carry on her father's legacy instead of condemning him, which you'd think she would have, cybernetically enhancing her entire body and continuing to upgrade it more and more as time went on. And that's how she kind of becomes basically a major Wolverine villain, because she's all like, that adamantium bonding process, I must get Wolverine and take it back of my father's legacy. Number 7. Heatwave. Heatwave was another of the rogues who was part of the genome experiment to have their DNA combined with that of their weapons. However, Captain Cold's transformation was much less horrifying, I'd say, than Heatwave's. Like Captain Cold, Mick Rory's weapon was also elemental in nature, with his being a heat gun as opposed to a cold gun. His DNA combined with his weapon gave him pyrokinesis abilities, which looked like they were pretty terrifying to him initially, as his whole body ignited in flames. Not gonna lie, I'd also be pretty afraid of that. That doesn't sound like great powers to me. I do not like fire, so I like to be a fair distance away from fire. Safety. Number 6. Absolute Carnage. During the Absolute Carnage event, Carnage received one of the most epic upgrades ever, especially considering at the time, he was pretty dead. Carnage had returned to Earth from space and in essence basically burned up on re-entry. Despite the symbiote's aim to try and keep its host, Cletus Cassidy, safe, the two entities combined as one both perished on their return. However, this wouldn't be the end for them, because they would be resurrected by a cult that worshipped the god of symbiotes, Null, seeking to appease and awaken him. And also because it's Carnage, and Carnage can never stay dead, even when you're like, but there's no way he could come back now, right? He still comes back. Carnage would be revived using the Grendel symbiote, making him extremely powerful, especially as he continued along on his mission to devour and collect the codices of all symbiote hosts, located in their spines, whether these hosts were superpowered or not, alive or dead. All in all, it was a very scary time. Number 5. Bizarro. Bizarro is a villain who is known for being insanely powerful, as he's kinda like an evil reflection of Superman, whether that be the version of Bizarro who is like a defective clone or was created to be the opposite of Supes by Lex Luthor, or the version of Bizarro who is in essence an alien from Bizarro World, or Hetrea, where everything is the opposite to our world, to Earth. People speak backwards, bad is considered good, even the formal name of the planet is technically just Earth spelt backwards. Hetrea. Bizarro, however, may be super strong like Superman, that isn't a direct opposite I guess, although his cold vision is, but he does not share Clark's intellect. Usually Bizarro is presented as being very dumb or simple-minded, at least in comparison to Superman, who is in essence an effortless super genius. However, with Bizarro 2, a defective clone of Superman created by Lex Luthor, he was, for a time, given a genius intellect as well. Unfortunately, this didn't last, but still, a super smart Bizarro is a terrifying, or perhaps, depending on the circumstances, more comforting thing to imagine. Number 4. Madeline Pryor, Queen of Goblins and of Limbo? Madeline Pryor is known as the Queen of Goblins, but did you know that she also recently became the Queen of Limbo? It is true. Now initially in the comics, Maddie was introduced to us as a love interest of X-Men member Cyclops, aka Scott Summers, and herself a normal human, so it would seem, without superpowers, who just happened to look like Jean Grey. From there, we learned that her looking identical to Jean was actually no coincidence, as she was in fact her clone, created by Mr. Sinister himself. Learning of this and tapping into her own power as basically a spark of the Phoenix gave her life, learning of this and tapping into her own power as well as experiencing constant mistreatment by her husband and those she believed she could call her friends, the X-Men, caused Maddie to suffer a mental breakdown, which resulted in her becoming evil, reaching out to the demons of Limbo and making a deal with them, and then kind of becoming the Goblin Queen as we know her. This caused the first Inferno event. After being defeated, initially Maddie would continue to pop up every now and then, often returning as a villain. More recently, she was permanently killed but received a new lease on life when she was resurrected on Krakoa. It seems she was ready to turn over a new leaf and forgive those who had mistreated her in the past, moving forward with her life. How healthy. She became the new Queen of Limbo after Magic sought to retire as ruling monarch of the Hellish Dimension, with Magic even going super far to be like, no, I trust Maddie, I think Maddie will be great. However, we later learn in the Dark Web event that Madeline actually wasn't ready to give up her grudges, as she used her newfound power over Limbo to amass a demon army and once more attack New York City. Turns out her pretending to be over everything was a bit of a ruse because she still had some stuff that she needed to resolve. This too, however, would be resolved, but for a time, Maddie was back to being a villain and with a power boost from Limbo. Number 3. Golden Glider. While Lisa Snart's powers may initially not seem like an upgrade, considering, well, they did leave her in a coma, they're actually insanely powerful, and once she kinda came to embrace them, made her a fairly even match for the Flash, who is also known for being one of the most powerful heroes around. Definitely one of the most powerful heroes in my book. Like the other rogues, Lisa herself also received actual superpowers during the experiment that was conducted to give the members of the team superpowers. In fact, Lisa wasn't actually one of those who intended to gain powers here, but merely got hers by accident, because the whole experiment went a little wonky, there was an explosion, she got caught in the crossfire of that explosion that granted everyone else superpowers, with her astral form being separated from her body and her physical form being rendered comatose. Eventually, she would recover from the explosion, but as Glider in her astral form would go on to recruit her own rogues team, becoming a leader of the team for a while. In her astral form, Lisa is extremely fast, so fast that she can actually appear virtually invisible to most. Not only that, but she can also weaken a speedster's connection to the Speed Force, temporarily disrupting it. See what I mean? Extremely powerful. And Lisa didn't even ask for this upgrade, she didn't even want powers. Number 2. Adamantium infused Bullseye. Maybe one of the most random upgrades to have happened, maybe not, considering at the time, kinda almost everyone was like getting adamantium, despite the fact that it's, supposed to be a super rare material in the Marvel universe. But hey, there was a time we were obsessed with adamantium, kinda everyone was getting a little bit, a little piece. Bullseye ended up getting himself some adamantium pieces, some upgrades, which made him an even larger threat to Daredevil in the future. His bones were experimentally infused with the metal substance, or encased, or whatever, making him akin to someone like Wolverine in terms of his durability, and meaning he couldn't just easily be taken out like most human opponents. After all, while Bullseye may be an extremely skilled marksman, possibly the most skilled marksman in the Marvel universe, he was just that, a human with skills. But with the adamantium upgrade, which he received from Lady Deathstrike's father, Lord Darkwind, he was now much more unstoppable and deadly. I will say this, unlike Wolverine, Bullseye does not have a completely coated and infused adamantium skeleton. Only pieces of adamantium coat parts of his skeleton, but this also includes his spine, which is still pretty scarily durable, and I mean your spine is a lot of the things that you need to be durable if you want to do crazy stuff, so he can do some pretty crazy things now. Number 1. Emperor Joker. Emperor Joker has to be one of the most unbelievable villain upgrades we've seen thus far in the comics. Emperor Joker ended up stealing his powers from Mr. Mxyzptlk, the 5th dimensional imp who is sometimes a mischievous villain to Superman, and at other times kind of like an oddball ally, depending on the story and depending on the writers. Mr. Mxyz only planned on giving Joker a small amount of his power, less than 1% I believe of his power. However, the Joker, being the trickster he himself is, managed to trick Mxyz into handing over 99.99% of his power instead. Ugh. Using this power, Joker ended up conquering the world easily, becoming Emperor Joker, even going so far as to literally devour China and making Batman his prisoner, who he would constantly torment and kill every single day, resurrecting him the next day to kind of do this all over again. In fact, Batman was left with no memory of this afterwards, having to have his mind wiped of these events, as otherwise he would have been so tormented by this experience that he would have not been able to continue on as a hero because he would have been broken. That's how bad it was for him. Fortunately, Unfortunately, in the end, Superman ended up defeating Emperor Joker. Not able to stand against him in terms of power levels, Superman defeated Joker by realizing his weakness, that the Joker really could not go on or continue to exist without Batman, which was why he couldn't bring himself to destroy Batman permanently, and that also meant that he couldn't destroy the universe permanently, so basically that's it. Made him a little unstable, and then they were able to take the power back. Woo!
Coming in at number 10 is the Sentry plus the Void. The Sentry and the Void are two sides of an incredibly powerful coin. Sentry is like a more powerful Superman, as controversial as that may be to say, but in order to balance him out, there is the dark side of the Sentry known as the Void, who is just as, if not more, powerful than the Sentry is. It keeps his character interesting and doesn't make him the center of everything in the Marvel Universe. Well, in Sentry 2018, issues 4 and 5, these two opposing sides of one man become whole, and it is absolutely insane. Apart from looking so incredibly cool, the whole Sentry was able to completely whoop the antagonist of the series, Billy, shapeshifting with black tendrils, withstanding energy blasts without a scratch, and altering reality in a small space to finally defeat his former sidekick. Then, the Avengers show up with She-Hulk, Captain Marvel, Thor, Iron Man, Captain America, and a whole hell of a lot of backup, and they can do nothing to him or to stop him. It didn't last forever, but it was an insane level of power contained inside one man. Number 9. Spider-Hulk. In the Immortal Hulk with Great Power story, Peter Parker is granted the alter ego of the Hulk after Loki magically transfers the Gamma power to him. So it's Spider-Man with all his relative spider powers mixed with the unstoppable green monstrosity of the Hulk, matched up with all the temperament of a toddler that comes with it. It's actually really cool, and there are tons of hilarious moments in the story. Eventually, the power of the Hulk is switched back to Banner with the help of the Fantastic Four and Banner's own genius, but it's a short little story that seems almost self-contained, but it's an insanely cool one, and a Spider-Hulk would be an incredibly powerful character if he were to show up again and had more time to hone his abilities and his temper tantrums. Number 8. Spider-Man and the Cosmic Comic. Sometimes Marvel will make a joke character or scenario, and it ends up creating a character more powerful than any other character possibly ever. In How to Read Comics the Marvel Way, issues 1 to 4, the comic itself becomes a character, and it starts off trying to teach the reader how exactly to read comic books. The comic follows Spider-Man in a conflict with Mysterio, who found the Cosmic Comic, the same one speaking to us, in the basement of the Natural History Museum. It allowed Mysterio to freeze Spider-Man in time in a comic panel, turn inanimate objects to life, and increase his size. Once Spider-Man gets his spider sense back, he realizes that the Cosmic Comic is influencing events, and he grabs the comic, thinking it's one of Mysterio's tricks, and tears it in half. After realizing the error of his ways here, Spider-Man and Mysterio begin trying to write their own comics to use the Cosmic Comic to make their comics become reality. That was confusing, and I'm sorry. Thanks to the Cosmic Comic, they end up fighting across time, altering history, and Peter learns of the fact that he is a comic book character. Seeing all of his comic book publication history, taking in all of this info, he then fuses together with the Cosmic Comic, basically meaning he can control reality within Marvel Comics, which I think is even technically more powerful than multiversal power. He prints the comic that he created, which has him save the day and win the battle, and it changes reality so that that's the outcome of the fight with Mysterio. It's nuts. Number 7. Strange Visitor Superman. Okay, before we start on this point, technically this Superman is not canon, but he is one of my favorite versions of the character, and he is truly one of the more powerful versions of the character as well. In the story, Superman outlives everything in the universe, living for literally billions and billions of years. He lives so long and gets so powerful that he gains new abilities like being able to split himself into 1,000 different copies that allow the hero to do what he does best throughout the universe. He outlives all the gods, cosmic entities, mortals, angels, demons, everything. He watches countless civilizations rise and fall and learns an insane amount of skills like telepathy. He absorbs ridiculous amounts of energy, learns magic and strange sciences through all his copies, and then reabsorbs them at the end of everything. He can fly faster than the entropic waves of the end of the universe and can manipulate the fabric of reality through sheer strength. Number 6. Gambit. Now this really isn't an upgrade as much as it's an example of what Gambit could potentially become. Gambit's main mutant power is that he can take the energy of an object and convert it into kinetic energy and make it explode, essentially. His signature move is to do this with a deck of cards, which is really cool, but on a side note, extremely impractical. Like, he must spend so much money on decks of cards. Anyways, around the time of the Mutant Massacre, Gambit had begun to lose control of his abilities, which led him to Mr. Sinister, who removed a part of Gambit's brain in order to keep his abilities controllable. With an ability that seemingly lets him manipulate kinetic energy, Gambit could have been stupidly powerful if that part of his brain was not removed, and we know that because of an alternate version of Gambit called New Sun, who has achieved the potential that Gambit could have reached. He can manipulate kinetic energy at a molecular level. He doesn't have to touch objects to charge them. He can use his ability on living beings. He can stop moving objects dead in their tracks or cause objects that aren't moving to begin moving. He can turn himself into pure energy that lets him travel into space and other dimensions. New Sun was able to defeat Dark Phoenix, and he ended up destroying everyone on his own Earth. Now when New Sun confronts the 616 Gambit, 616 Gambit had restored his powers, and it allowed him to fly, heal himself, and even defeat New Sun. It's so cool, and it doesn't really get to that level ever again. Number 5. Wonder Woman. Again, gifted with the powers of the gods, Wonder Woman has many of the same abilities Superman possesses, including strength, speed, and durability. However, Wonder Woman's Amazonian training sets her a little apart as an amazing warrior. It's been debated for years whether Diana could beat Superman in a fight, and while she's shown to be capable of hurting him at least, she doesn't have the same raw power. Instead, Wonder Woman dominates her opponents through a combination of her special abilities, superior tactics, and special equipment gifted to her by the gods, but she has been elevated beyond that. When Diana was empowered with the World Forge and the Anti-Crisis energy at the end of Doom War / during Death Metal, she had enough power to shake stars and phase throughout time through sheer strength. She had displayed the ability to shrink an entire planet and was able to link everyone together and restored their memories as one history, as in all of DC's continuity. She has cosmic awareness, able to see multiple events during the war against the Batman Who Laughs at once, as well as precognition and retrocognition. She was crazy powerful for that short amount of time. Number 4. Dark Crisis Superman. During the events of DC's Dark Crisis event, the main players of the Justice League were wiped out. While everyone assumed that they were gone to their graves, what actually happened is that each member was trapped in their own little pocket reality. Batman, Hal Jordan Green Lantern, Barry Allen the Flash, and Wonder Woman were living in realities created by their own wishes and desires, and weren't really aware of what was happening, except for Batman, because he's Batman, and Superman. When the other members of the League who escaped their pocket realities come to free Superman, he is fully aware of the nature of his pocket reality, and the already insanely powerful Man of Steel has become massively more powerful. Superman had tried to escape this reality countless times, but he always failed. So, instead of putting that effort into escaping, he put his efforts into training himself and absorbing the cosmic energy of the pocket reality itself. He basically became what is basically a cosmically powered god and used that power to defeat the villain. Number 3. Emma Frost Lifebringer. In the alternate reality given to us in Marvel 2-in-1 from 2018, instead of Reed Richards and the Fantastic Four saving our world from Galactus, it was actually Dr. Doom who did it, and in true Doom fashion, he saved the world in a pretty evil way to ensure he would be powered up in the process. Although, I don't believe that was what he was trying to do, but you know, whatever. Instead of trying to destroy Galactus, Doom used a transference device to take over the World Devourer's body. The catch is that Dr. Doom was now driven by the same hunger that Galactus had, and he ate every single planet in the universe, leaving Earth as the only planet left in the cosmos. Galactus gains more power as he consumes planets, so as you can imagine, this Doom Galactus hybrid who consumed the universe is incredibly powerful and incredibly hard to fight against when he turns his hunger back on the Earth. A whole group of heroes band together to save the Earth, but it's Emma Frost who makes the greatest sacrifice. Using another transference device, Frost transfers herself into Galactus, kicking out Doom, but also rewriting the core of Galactus's being, and instead of devouring worlds, she sets out to restore the universe back to the way it should be with the immense cosmic power of Emma Frost, Galactus Lifebringer. Number 2. Chaos King Hercules. The Chaos King is a little bit glossed over when talking about incredibly powerful villains, and I think that's because the story was focused around Hercules. Hercules is a cool character, but from what I know, he hasn't ever really received the same kind of popularity as other characters in Marvel, especially with the character of Thor, who is similar, being godly in nature and incredibly strong, but also just a bit, kind of a lot cooler. But the Chaos Wars story was insanely cool. Basically, the Chaos King, a universal entity of darkness, was able to defeat the gods of every pantheon and absorb their combined power. He also was powered by the souls of every being who had ever passed away in the whole universe from the beginning of time. He was extremely close to completely wiping out everything in the universe. In order to fight the Chaos King, Hercules gets himself imbued by the power of the elder god Gaia and becomes an absolutely insanely powerful god of gods. He could teleport, fly, and emit energy blasts from his hands and eyes. He caused massive shockwaves and craters with every step he took. He very easily destroyed not only a Chaos King powered and controlled Zeus and Athena with one hit each, but the entire Council of Godheads itself as well. He summoned Galactus and the cosmic entity Eternity to fight for him against their will. He matched the Chaos King blow for blow at a size larger than a planet, and once the threat was gone, he restored every destroyed planet, realm, every being, entity, and god, and then he lost the power. And coming in finally at number 1 is Moon Knight. While Moon Knight is normally a regular old street level hero, the nature of his abilities, being the avatar of the Egyptian god Khonshu, means that he does have the potential to become ridiculously overpowered, which he does in the Age of Khonshu event. During this event, thanks to a supermoon, the normally relatively low-powered Moon Knight defeats the Iron Fist Danny Rand and uses an Ankh to steal his Iron Fist powers, which he then takes to the Sanctum Sanctorum and punches Doctor Strange using another Ankh to steal the power of the Eye of Agamotto. He then steals the car of Robbie Reyes' Ghost Rider, which he takes to Wakanda alongside an army of the dead to take the powers of Black Panther, which fails, but then he ends up facing Thor, steals his hammer Mjolnir, beats the snot out of Thor, and since Khonshu is the god of the moon, he summons a bunch of moons from different places in space and traps Thor between these giant celestial bodies. Now, the whole reason Moon Knight is doing any of this is because Khonshu told him to in order to defeat Mephisto in order to save the world, which Moon Knight easily does using an amped up Mjolnir to rip a hole through the Hell Lord. Unfortunately, Moon Knight is kind of forced to do the bidding of Khonshu, who now takes the power and uses it to essentially conquer the world. Since Moon Knight is a hero though, he eventually gets himself empowered by the Phoenix Force in order to face and defeat Khonshu himself. It was an insane story, and he even considered completely wiping out humanity at the end, but luckily did not.
At number 10, we have Green Lantern's Power Ring upgrade that allows the rings to communicate with the other Green Lanterns in the universe. This feature, added by the Guardians of the Universe, is a huge upgrade that gives the ring a major advantage. Although there has always been an emergency beacon offered as part of the ring's powers, this is only meant to be used to relay to other Green Lanterns in times of distress. The homing beacon is a fantastic way to bring all the powers of the Green Lanterns together at any time, giving them that extra support whenever it's needed. Or even aside from combat situations, this is a great power to allow Green Lanterns to communicate with one another about strategy to better prepare themselves in the planning stages. Considering there are plenty of Green Lanterns throughout the universe, it would otherwise be extremely difficult to ensure that everyone is where they need to be at any given moment. Pretty nifty, and an underrated ability if you ask me. At number 9, we have Sam Wilson's Captain America suit. This is a huge upgrade for this suit, giving it vibranium wings, Gatling guns, and a nice little clip for the shield right on his back. While Captain America's suit usually doesn't change very drastically over the years, it's pretty obvious that it's due to the fact that Cap is strong enough that he doesn't need to rely on his suit to help him. He's usually more of a leader, with his most valuable assets being his military strategy and brute strength. But when he hands off the moniker to Falcon, the classic suit and shield get a huge upgrade. And not because Falcon needs the support of his suit, but because why not? I mean, Falcon has to have wings, so already a Captain America suit with wings is enough. but throwing those guns on it really brings the suit to a new level. And he still gets to keep the shield. I think immortal retired Steve Rogers will sleep soundly at night knowing Sam is on the job with this upgraded suit. At number 8, we have Captain Marvel's Nega Bands. Although you may know Marvel's suit as already having the Nega Bands as part of the package, this wasn't always the case. Before he acquires them, he is still extremely powerful from being empowered by a cosmic entity named Zoe, later properly realized as Eon. He's able to fly faster than light speed, has superhuman strength, and is also able to teleport anywhere in the universe instantly. So it's hard to imagine how a suit upgrade would offer any sort of improvement, but it does. When the Nega Bands are added to the equation, Marvel is then able to travel between reality and the negative zone whenever he wants. But that's not all, at all. He can also absorb any energy that is coming at him, be it a powerful blast from an enemy or even the energy of the sun. They are also capable of providing healing powers and increased strength. They even keep the wearer from requiring food, air, water, and sleep, which is pretty helpful. They do have their limitations though. They don't protect from drowning or gas-based attacks. And this actually leads to Captain Marvel's demise when he's inflicted with a poison gas by Nitro that actually gives him terminal cancer. But anyway, let's not get too dark here. These Nega Bands are a huge upgrade for Marvel, and that's all that matters in terms of this suit. At number 7 is the Superman Godfall suit upgrade. Now, considering Superman's unmatched strength, he doesn't really have much use for upgrades in that regard, but this suit upgrade is all about the looks and the motorcycle. In the Superman Godfall storyline, Superman has lost his memory and is living in what appears to be a dystopian city called Kandor, alongside his wife Lila. It's a state we aren't used to seeing Superman in. He's got a job, working at a kitchen, and appears to be living a pretty human life, without even his secret identity needing to be hidden. And his costume is just, it's so cool and Blade Runner-esque with a Tron-style motorcycle to boot. I mean, who doesn't want to see Superman having access to a motorcycle when he's facing off against dystopian villains? It's just a great reimagining of the character and the suit he wears, and I think it's a fair addition to this list. Upgrades don't always have to be based on abilities and features, you know. Looks matter too. Okay, at number 6, I'm putting Blade's silver armor from Blade Vampire Hunter from 1999. Taking a break from the usual mysterious green or black trench coat, this suit offers a whole new image for Blade. Now, I don't know if I'd say this is his best look ever, but I will say that it's a big upgrade in terms of utility. Having armor seems like a pretty obvious call for a vampire hunter from the get-go, so when I found the silver armor, I knew it had to make an appearance on the list. And the main reason why this suit ranks higher on the list is that silver is known to be a weakness for vampires, which are naturally a threat to a vampire hunter. This suggests that aside from the defense upgrade, this suit also gives Brooks a huge added advantage against his typical foes, on top of the obvious protective advantage. Even though it only sticks around for 2 years, this is a good upgrade for the character that offers much more protection than his typical garb. With a silver chestplate and silver gauntlets, this costume just gives Eric Brooks a more reasonable level of protection and sort of fits him into the category of superhero a bit more. At least in the traditional sense of how he looks. I still think it was the right move to bring him back to his original black leather jacket after the suit ran its course, but it is a good moment for Blade's armor in the grand scheme of things. At number 5, we've got a controversial one, Wolverine's heated claws. Although this upgrade is known to be slightly silly and short-lasting, I think it's probably one of the best straight-up upgrades on this list. It's not an attachment or an aesthetic update, but a good old-fashioned upgrade of the pre-existing power, and it's Wolverine's primary weapon of choice, so getting to keep using the same old equipment, except now it can heat up to extreme temperatures, that's pretty good. And what makes it even cooler is how the heated claws are formed. When Wolverine is resurrected from death, the excess energy left over from his body's healing process goes into his claws and brings the adamantium to extreme temperatures. Now remember, these claws are made of one of the most durable metals in the universe, so even though heated metal tends to soften, you shouldn't expect his adamantium claws to do the same. These things are driving right into any and every enemy like a hot knife through soft butter. Ew, that's a weird visual. But it's true, and not to mention, this dude just came back from the dead, so you can expect him to be pretty angry and ready to take it out on anyone in his way. Okay, at number 4 is the Iron Spider suit. Now, this is such a huge upgrade that the word upgrade doesn't even do it justice. Now, if you've seen my list of the top 10 Spider-Man suits, you know that the hero has had many different suits and they are all useful in their own right. But this one is probably the most drastic change that the suit endures in the right direction. Designed by Tony Stark himself, this upgrade changes literally every aspect of the suit for the better. It gets these 4 spider legs with grips and cameras on the ends of them, allowing the wearer to use them to climb walls hands-free as well as use the cameras to see around corners. He's also got the same internal HUD system as Iron Man's suit, giving him heightened senses using the computer's intel, not to mention the sophisticated mask system that offers full filtration to keep him from facing a similar fate to Captain Marvel. And a gliding system, giving him more hang time between web swings. It's a huge upgrade to the suit that totally changes the game for Spider-Man and offers him a whole new set of capabilities with which to defend himself and to best all the bad guys. At number 3, we've got Iron Man's Hulkbuster suit, which is an insanely powerful upgrade to the typical Iron Man suit, as you can probably already tell by the name. Now, just like Spidey, Iron Man has seen tons of different iterations of his suit, but in this case, this upgrade has a very specific function: to bust the Hulk. To fight the Hulk, yes. The goal is to get the suit to a point where it's ready to take on the Hulk. Otherwise known as Iron Man's Mark 44 armor, this upgrade gives Tony Stark all the tools he needs to take down a bad guy bigger than those he's used to. This thing has a missile launcher, a grappling hook, and something called automatic prehensile propulsion technology, which is basically a function that allows the armor to assemble on its own when it's called upon. And considering the Hulk's impulsive reputation, this feature would probably come in handy if the Hulk suddenly decided he wasn't on Tony's side anymore. On top of all this, he's got the built-in rams, which are used to add that extra oomph to Iron Man's punches. And if he decides that brute force is no use against the Green Giant, he's also got sleeping gas built into this thing. Although it's not super useful in the movies, this feature will definitely find its benefit at some point down the line if applied properly. At number 2 are Spider-Man's web shooters. I know this is the second Spider-Man upgrade on this list, but it's just a classic upgrade that must be mentioned. I mean, I would even argue that this is the ultimate superhero suit upgrade. And what makes this one really special is that it's the first time we're really shown how much of a scientific genius Peter Parker is. Sure, his character is established on the basis that he's very smart and proficient in biology, but this invention basically allows him to be Spider-Man. Not only does he design the shooters themselves, but he creates the web fluid, which is arguably one of the most useful and durable materials in the world. This list features plenty of upgrades that take an already powerful suit and bring it to a new level, but this entry is an upgrade that turns a guy with superhuman strength and reflexes into, well, Spider-Man. We all know about this one, and it's almost seen as a given at this point, but it really deserves credit for what it really is and was at the time of its creation. A huge step into Spider-Man's career as a superhero. Alright, at number 1 we have the Batman Justice Buster upgrade, which ranks high on the list because, once again, the word upgrade is a total understatement on this one. I break this one down in more depth than the top 10 Batman suits list, but basically, this suit is designed to take on the Justice League. So every element of this suit has some sort of benefit against each of the members of the Justice League, giving the mortal Bruce Wayne an unmatched advantage against any opponents, not just the Justice League. Considering the suit he dons before the Justice Buster is just his typical costume, having a mechanized suit that has processors that work faster than the Flash can move is a pretty big upgrade. And besides the many features specific for taking down the members of the Justice League, this suit just has huge defense stats and attack strength that would help Bruce in any combat situation.
Number 10, Harley Quinn. In retrospect, what might seem like a natural evolution for this character at the time, I'm sure, seemed quite revolutionary considering her origin. Harley Quinn is a comic book character who originally hailed from the animated world of DC, being so successful and so well loved as a result of her animated appearances in Batman the Animated Series that she was incorporated as well into comic book lore. She was initially only intended to be a small character for the animated world as well, but simply became just too popular for her to not become more prominent in the show and then move over to the comics. Harley initially was introduced to us as the wacky clown girlfriend of the Joker. Or perhaps more like his wannabe girlfriend, as the Joker seemed to often mistreat and sidestep Harley and her attempts at romance at almost every turn, often more focused on capturing or defeating Batman than he ever was on Harl's. His behavior towards her almost seemed to result in a kind of Stockholm-like syndrome manifesting in Harley, that Harley struggled to break thereafter. Fortunately, she did eventually break it, and with some help and support from her good friend and later girlfriend, Poison Ivy, I think we can all consider this was a major upgrade for her character, and her own prowess as a villain. And honestly, it makes sense, because I feel like Harley's so great she deserves to be independent, you know? Especially in the Harley Quinn animated series, it's quickly implied in season 1 that Harley was perhaps more of the secret mastermind behind the Joker than her puddin' would ever give her credit for.
Number 9. Doctor Doom Avengers BC. In Volume 5 of Thor from 2018, we get a little peek at the alternate reality of Earth 14412, where millions of years in the future, humankind has been completely wiped from the Earth, or almost completely. As some people know, even at the end of everything, there will still always be Doom. Dr. Doom inexplicably survived the wiping out of humanity, and since Doom is constantly trying to find ways to become more and more powerful, he decided to try and obtain the powers of the prehistoric Avengers. When All-Father Thor showed up back on Earth and restored life, Doom came back to conquer, powered by the infinitely powerful Starbrand and a spirit of vengeance. He had the powers of the Iron Fist, and he wielded the Eye of Agamotto and the Cloak of Levitation. Plus, he had been developing his own abilities for a millennia. Returning to Earth and being enraged by what has happened to Latveria, plus wanting to claim the Phoenix Force, Mjolnir, and the Thor Force with these abilities, he fought against All-Father Thor, who was powered up by the Phoenix Force inside of the Earth for 99 years, causing massive earthquakes and eruptions, and unfortunately losing, as all villains must.
Number 8. Weather Wizard. Weather Wizard is a member of the Rogues, a villain team who mainly go up against the Flash. When Captain Cold was tired of being defeated time and time again by his nemesis, he decided to take matters into his own hands by combining his and his teammates' weapons with their DNA, thereby giving them powers all their own, as opposed to them, needing to rely on tech and equipment. For Weather Wizard, after the incident, he no longer needed his weather wand, and instead simply had control over weather just inherently. He typically preferred to utilize these powers through firing down bolts of lightning at his enemies, which honestly, if I had the power over weather, I'd probably also go with lightning because it's pretty OP. Or maybe, I guess, I don't know, rain that you can't escape. I hate that when it's just drizzling and it's like all around you, even if you have an umbrella up. Ugh. Ugh.
Number 7. Loki, Sorcerer Supreme. As we learn in Doctor Strange number 385, every few decades the Vishanti will gather the greatest sorcerers from around the globe and set them against each other in what is basically a tournament to decide on who will become the Sorcerer Supreme of that realm. There have been 2 previous tournaments, both of which saw Stephen Strange as the winner, but the most recent competition saw something different happen. Loki, Laufey's son, seeking to make up for all the bad things he had done in the past, seemed to actually come out on top, becoming the new Sorcerer Supreme, even though he wasn't even a candidate in the first place. The Vishanti decided that they wanted someone who wasn't a mortal to take over as Sorcerer Supreme, which is a bit of a weird reason, but hey, I ain't complaining. Stephen, being an extremely sore loser and wanting to stop Loki from finding an extremely powerful spell, recruits the Sentry, steals magic from Yggdrasil, the World Tree, and allowed himself to be possessed by the Void to take his title back. Turns out that the whole tournament was actually an illusion created by Loki, apparently to bring Stephen down so he would in turn become strong enough to handle some big events that were coming their way, aka War of the Realms, Damnation, Infinity Countdown, and Final Host.
Number 6. Tryon Juggernaut. What's more powerful than the Juggernaut on a regular day? How about a version of Juggy who can literally muscle his way into other dimensions? That is what we're talking about when it comes to this version of the Juggernaut, the Tryon Juggernaut. This all went down after Juggernaut was imbued with cosmic powers via the Tryon, an interdimensional entity that first appeared in X-Men issue number 88. This all happened as a result of the fact that Kane Marco basically lost his abilities after being tricked, and so the X-Men ultimately decided to save him, because they are the X-Men, they are heroes. When his powers were restored, however, it was revealed that the crystal that they had been stored in after being taken from him was apparently not empty, and with it came the power and influence of the diabolical entity known as Tryon, who possessed Kane, elevating his powers. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button. Click it, do it, click it.
Click it! Number 5. Gold Goblin. One of the most surprising things to happen to a villain is when they become a hero. Usually this happens with the most likable of villains, Magneto, Doctor Doom, Loki, but one villain who I have never found to be particularly nice was the Green Goblin. Now, sure, Norman Osborn is a pretty conflicted guy who suffers from some severe mental health issues, but given the way he has repeatedly attempted to make Peter Parker's life a living hell, and usually with the most extreme methods, I wouldn't trust him as far as I could throw him, which, with these tiny arms, isn't very far. Well, later last year, Norman had a bit of a change of heart thanks to the villain Sin Eater. All of Norman's sins had been removed, whatever that means, and now Norman is filled with regret. After supplying Peter with a job and a new suit and even a glider of his own, Norman jumps in to help Peter against Ned Leeds and Roderick Kingsley, the Hobgoblins, donning a prototype suit and glider and being dubbed the Gold Goblin by those who witnessed him. It's not that Norman gained a massive power boost, but more of a morality boost and a cool new advanced look which he is currently using to do good after years and years of being the absolute worst.
Number 4. God Killer Grail. In my previous video, part 2 of this series, I talked about someone else wielding the God Killer, but before that villain had it, Grail did. Which really, this upgrade fits extremely well with her and makes her seemingly even more unstoppable considering that her whole thing is, kind of basically just killing gods. Initially, Grail's ambition was to defeat her father Darkseid. This was the task given to her by her mother, who was an Amazonian assassin who bore Darkseid's child, seeing the child as a means to an end for defeating the dread new god and ruler of Apocalypse. Grail by herself is already a powerhouse, possessing basically magical abilities as well as new god abilities, so when you add in the God Killer, it really just feels like overkill. Over God kill.
Number 3. King Thanos. Thanos in the MCU is fueled by a desire to save the universe. He erases half of the life in the universe to cut down overconsumption of resources. Well, in the comics, that is not the case at all. In the comics, Thanos is a psychopath, an extremely powerful galactic warlord, all in the name of trying to please a girl. Not just any girl, but Death herself, the skeletal cosmic entity that embodies decay and destruction. And he pines after her hard. So much so that in the alternate timeline of TRN 666, his quest to please her led him to the end of life of almost every single living thing in the galaxy, and he became the king of nothing that remained. He had a servant in the form of Frank Castle, who was a spirit of vengeance and possessed the power cosmic. He kept the Incredible Hulk in his dungeon as his attack dog, and he subjected himself to the penance stare every morning as a nice little reminder of how utterly despicable he is. In order to finally achieve his goal of being with Mistress Death, King Thanos realized he himself needed to pass on, and to defeat the one being who had always eluded him, the Fallen One, which is an incredibly amped up Silver Surfer. To help him do both of these tasks, King Thanos used the Time Stone to bring his younger self to the future, but it didn't exactly go as planned.
Number 2. Queen Ivy. While deceptively named after basically a houseplant, Queen Ivy is one of the most powerful versions we've ever seen of this character. This is a version of Ivy that manifested when it was revealed that she had split into 2 separate beings, Ivy and Queen Ivy. Ivy was more fixated on the fact that she was going through, some major identity crises, while Queen Ivy was kind of more interested in living that true villain life. After the 2 halves joined back together again, we were left with just Poison Ivy once more, back to her somewhat normal self. But this version of Pamela has definitely been changed by the experience of splitting apart and rejoining, as she now has some fungi-related spore powers. These can be used to infect those who stand against her, and have been shown to result in horrifying hallucinogenic experiences that lead to severe deformation, ultimately resulting in an extremely painful looking death. Would not wish it on anyone.
In at number 1 is the God of Apocalypse. Lex Luthor is one of the greatest villains of all time. For a seemingly normal man with a brilliant mind, he consistently brings the most powerful beings around to their knees. But during DC's New 52, he went to a whole different level. During the Darkseid Wars storyline, Darkseid falls at the hands of the Anti-Monitor. When this happens, Lex was trapped on Apocalypse, where he encountered the Forgotten People, a group who held a prophecy that essentially said that the next ruler of Apocalypse would be a human. Now, while they assumed it would be Superman, all Lex Luthor had to do to make it otherwise was tell a little old lie. Lex said that he was the man from their prophecy, which led the Forgotten People to contain the Omega Effect inside the Man of Steel's #1 enemy. While they warned that he would pass away if he was lying, he actually manages to survive the bonding and becomes the new God of Apocalypse, harnessing the power of the Omega Effect. After becoming bored of the planet he just became the ruler of, he used the power to become the new Superman, following the original original's passing, but then he used it to fight a pre-Flashpoint Superman, as confusing as that sounds. It was also shortly lived, as Darkseid was revived and took back the power, and it was also part of the confusing mess that was the New 52, but for a time, Lex Luthor was essentially the new Darkseid, and incredibly powerful.
Number 10. The Long Halloween. The Batsuit from The Long Halloween has become almost as iconic and well-loved as the story in which it appears. In The Long Halloween, we get to truly see Batman shine as a brilliant detective, which is a huge part of his character and what fans love about him. The Long Halloween suit is fairly powerful as it comes with Batman's iconic yellow utility belt, but the overall color scheme for it is a touch darker than usual, making it even more appropriate for stealthing around in the dark. Something that you likely want a Batsuit to be really well designed for, considering how much it's a part of Batman's general strategy for disarming and taking down criminals. Starting off light, I give The Long Halloween 1 pouch out of 5 for my personal Beltometer ranking, which I'm gonna do throughout this list just because I think it's funny and I want to. Number 9, Earth 1. On Earth 1, Batman's suit can plug into a state-of-the-art advanced computer system that he keeps in his Batcave. This system allows him to run criminal checks and also process criminal analysis. Within his utility belt, he also has a plethora of tools and devices to be used in the field. The Earth 1 suit provides Batman with all the items that he needs to unleash the full potential of his investigative skills and helps to enhance Batman's already impressive fighting prowess. It's a standard suit, but one that gets the job done and works well. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I give the Earth 1 suit 2 out of 5 utility belt pouches. And friends, before we move on to this next spot, if you are loving this list and you want more lists like it where we talk about all the various Batsuits, goodness knows there have been many different looks and many different power levels of suit, be sure to let us know by giving this video a thumbs up. Number 8, Exoframe. The Dark Knight Returns Batsuit, known sometimes as the Exoframe Batsuit or the Powered Batsuit from Frank Miller's story featuring an old Batman facing off against an old but less aged Superman, is a tank of a suit. I mean, it has to be, because it has to help compensate for Batman's more advanced age, and it also has to make up for the power imbalance between Bruce and Clark so that he doesn't just get smooshed straight out of the gate, but can actually hold his own against the powerhouse that is Superman. This is a much more armor-based and durable suit. It also comes fully weaponized with some tricks that Batman can utilize to help him in his fight against Superman. Ultimately, the suit isn't enough to let him win the battle, unless of course his whole plan was to just put up a good show and feign defeat in the end, which based on the ending of this story seems extremely likely. I give the Dark Knight Returns Batsuit 2 pouches out of 5. Number 7, Plated. The Plated Batsuit comes from Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy and is the new suit that Bruce has made after the Nomex suit leaves him wanting more flexibility. Batman can't turn his head in this suit, which of course means he has to rely on peripherals in combat, and he jokes makes it hard for him to back out of the driveway. Lucius Fox, in response to Bruce's complaints on the Nomex suit, helps him by designing the Plated suit. This suit is composed of more separate pieces, which give Batman added flexibility, agility, and speed. It's made up of hardened Kevlar plates on a titanium-dipped fiber, with his cowl's new design being based on that of a motorcycle helmet, granting him increased flexibility in his neck so he can actually, turn his head. Batman also gives the suit sonar vision, which would use cell phones to help Batman see in even pitch darkness by tapping into said cell phones and using them as microphones to broadcast a high frequency, which the suit can then use to see just about anywhere in Gotham. He can also use the sonar vision to tap into people's cell phones, so he can also use them to listen in on just what's going on in Gotham and what people are saying, which is pretty creepy. However, Lucius was not a fan of the sonar vision because he felt it was unethical, equating it to spying on millions of people whenever it was being used. So while this was cool tech, it was never really fully utilized because Lucius disagreed with his design for sonar vision being used in this manner to spy on people. And he was the only one that Bruce trusted to ethically use it. In fact, Lucius's reaction was to agree to help Batman, but only once, as he felt compelled to resign because of how this tech was going to be used. Granted, the tech had a self-destruct built in by Bruce, who knew Lucius probably wouldn't agree to using that tech all the time, and it was destroyed after the one-time use, implying that Fox stayed on and of course did not end up resigning. The plated suit also didn't provide as much protection and ended up getting Bruce injured to the point that he would need a cane. Still, a solid 3 out of 5 pouches, but I feel like speed should not be as important as the actual armor of the suit, in my mind. If Batman was like, yeah, I just want to move my neck, I'd be like, dude, I just want you to keep your neck, you know what I mean? Number 6, Mark I. The Mark I Batsuit comes to us from Batman the Telltale series, an episodic-based playable novel-style video game where your choices as Batman influence the world and the story around you, meaning that you get to see what it feels like to literally be Batman. There are a few different versions of the Batsuit that we get throughout the evolution of the story and the game. The first suit you get to play with is, of course, the Mark I, which was primarily designed by Lucius Fox. The suits in the Telltale games really should not be underestimated, by the way. The Mark I comes armored, of course, protecting you as Batman against gunfire and even armor-piercing bullets. Aside from that, you also get more heavily armored gauntlets to defend against incoming attacks on your exposed jawline. The suit also comes with tech that allows you to pilot and control drones, so you can plan combat strategies and get surveillance before jumping into a fight. It also comes with a voice modulator, hacking equipment, visual holographic, and criminal and forensic analysis capabilities, thermal imaging, night vision, and sticky bombs. This suit gets a 3 out of 5 pouches rating from me, and that's just the first model from the game, so yeah, it also gets better from there. But I like the Mark I, so I wanted to talk about that one. Number 5, Nomex. Even though the Nomex suit was actually designed before the plated Batsuit armor in Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight trilogy, I still actually think that this one is better and a more powerful suit overall. It offered Bruce a lot more protection when in battle. It made him almost bullet and knife proof with its Kevlar bi-weave. This armor was actually based on a rejected military design that, while impressive, was considered too costly by the US military for them to use. Or any other military, that's how expensive it was. Obviously not an issue for Bruce Wayne though. The suit was created by Lucius Fox and would later be modified by Bruce and Alfred. For the purpose of this list, we're focusing on that modified version, which has a few key improvements that allow Batman to easily eavesdrop on conversations in the vicinity but out of earshot, an improved helmet, as the original one was defective, and a latex coating which helps to mask Batman's heat signature. The major downside with this suit is that flexibility is reduced somewhat, making Batman a bit slower in battle and preventing him from turning his head. Still, I give the Nomex suit 4 out of 5 pouches. Number 4, Prime. Obviously, one of the best suits around has to still be the Earth Prime suit. It is one of the most modern, and because it isn't restricted to the cinematic realism we often apply to films to make sure characters aren't too powerful and to also make sure things are logical for people that are watching, it can be a little bit more OP. The suit is also made of Kevlar with some titanium also thrown in the mix. It's bulletproof and also helps to protect Batman from high impact damage and blunt force trauma. So if he falls out of a window from a low-rise building, he'll likely be able to still get up and even possibly recover and continue the fight. It's also flame retardant. His mask also has a thin lead lining to protect him from X-ray powers and abilities, and includes sonar capabilities, enhanced auditory sensors, infrared, and night vision. Like the plated suit from the Dark Knight trilogy, his mask also comes equipped with defensive measures like an electrical shock or gas emissions, which help to protect Batman's secret identity should someone try to unmask him. In his utility belt, he also carries a slew of tools that we've seen him utilize over the years in battle, including a kryptonite ring gifted to him by Superman himself, just in case it should ever be needed. I give the Prime suit 4 out of 5 utility belt pouches. Lots of cool stuff in that utility belt. Number 3, Project Batman Exosuit. The Project Batman Exosuit was created for Jim Gordon when he filled in as Batman after the events of Endgame. Not only was Jim Gordon trained up and enhanced himself in order to become the newly appointed Batman, but he was also given this nifty suit to use as well. The suit had 2 layers, a very svelte undersuit, which was sleek and trim that Gordon wore, and the mechanical exosuit, which was like a small mech. This suit came equipped with live rounds, rocket launchers, and all the bells and whistles when it came to tech. It came with the neural guidance system, emergency response equipment including a defibrillator, fire and heat sonics, cannons, a retractable thermo-resist blackout visor, rocket boosters, and camouflage capabilities. It was pretty nuts. Oh, it could also just do its own thing and you didn't even have to pilot. It could be like on autopilot and also be like helping Jim Gordon while he was Batman outside of the suit as well, which is nuts. For the Project Batman suit, I gotta give it a solid 4 out of 5 pouches, because it is crazy. I mean, imagine if Batman wore that suit. That would be nuts. Like Bruce Wayne Batman, not Jim Gordon Batman, who was good, but he's not Bruce Wayne. Number 2, Hellbat. Hellbat is an amazing suit of basically nanotech armor. It was created for Batman by the Justice League to help him increase his stats for battles in which he was completely outclassed. The suit is extremely durable, tough and strong, and can be summoned or dismissed at will via AI tech. The suit has cloaking capabilities, can give Batman literal wings to fly on, and can produce a powerful energy blast from its bat insignia. The downside with this suit is that it's not indestructible, and powerful enemies like Darkseid have damaged it before. It also drains Batman's metabolism when he uses it to increase his own physical abilities such as strength, toughness, or speed, so he needs to be careful as overuse of this element of the suit could actually end up resulting in his death. Still, Batman doesn't even need the Justice League to reassemble this suit after it's first made, and not only does it look cool, but it is very, very OP. I give this suit 5 out of 5 utility belt pouches. Maybe even 6, actually. It's pretty crazy. I don't know if there's a 6 on this list, but these last few, they're definitely pushing it. Number 1, Insider. The Insider was a super cool spy suit that Batman used after he returned from being MIA, but was believed dead following a battle with Darkseid, which didn't actually leave him dead, but did leave him having weird time travel adventures. It was a long story. Returning home, he decided to check in with the Bat family and see how they were doing in his absence with the care of Gotham before revealing himself, because Batman. He created a suit to help disguise himself, which had various different modes that allowed him to basically mimic the powers of various members of the Justice League to help keep his identity secret. Although he also included Batman himself in those modes, because Batman is also a member of the Justice League. And it'd be weird if he didn't. If he didn't, I feel like people might be like, maybe it's Batman pretending to be everybody else. This allowed him to maintain an air of mystery while also giving him a really powerful and cool power set with his suit. Oh yeah, and he could also fly and teleport in this suit, because why not? He couldn't teleport super far, but he could still teleport. I give this suit 5 out of 5 pouches, and some bonus Batarang style points, because it's super cool. Throw those Batarangs around.